I'm back with another video, and in this video I am going to be going over a 10-minute game that I played yesterday, and also I am going to really buckle down and try and get my rapid rating to at least 2200, so I have a peak rating of 2133, I believe, in the last year. I'm 2117 as of live right now, but in this game I was 2103. And this is rapid rating, so 10 minute or 15 plus 10. I'm probably going to be playing primarily 10 minute, but if I really want to slow down and make good moves, I'll play a 15 plus 10 game. And I highly recommend that you play those games just to improve your calculation and make sure that you're not blundering anything, especially in time pressure. You get a little bit more time in that case. But this game will probably be the first of a series where I'm going to really try and push to 2200 and hopefully beyond that, and hopefully I will have some good games along the way. Alright, so let's just jump right in. So I have white piece in this game. Pawn to d4 was played, pawn to d5, pawn to c4, and pawn to c6. So this is generally the Slav defense, but after knight f3, pawn to e6, black goes for the semi-Slav, which is this kind of pyramid formation. As opposed to just going knight f6 and then maybe taking on c4. When the pawns are on c6 and e6, you got a semi-Slav on hand. So generally, I like to treat this with pawn to e3, just to avoid any strange lines where if you go knight c3, they can end up taking on c4, and this is the note boom variation. I don't really know much theory here. I don't think it's supposed to be particularly scary for white, but I don't know the theory, so I'd rather not go into some kind of unnecessary complications that I don't know very well. So I generally just treat it with pawn to e3, and black goes knight f6, knight to c3, and after knight bd7, we're just in a mainline semi-Slav, and there are really two main moves here, or maybe three, I would say. There's really queen c2, bishop d3, and bishop e2. Those are the main moves. I think b3 is also possible, but the main move that I always employ is queen to c2. So this sidesteps the Moran and the various Moran variations after bishop to e2, bishop d3, either of those, and then black will end up taking on c4 and playing b5 with a tempo on my bishop after I recapture on c4. So I play queen to c2, which kind of sidesteps that. It's kind of a waiting move, so that if black wants to take on c4, I can take back without having to move my bishop again. And queen c2 is generally a pretty useful move anyway, so this is a standard line. And then after bishop to d6, just developing the bishop, I choose to play pawn to g4. So we have this aggressive line. This is the Shabalov attack, and I've played this many times over the board, and generally I'll stick to it in rapid in a lot of cases when I'm in this position. Sometimes I go b3 because it's more solid, but g4 is really going for a fighting game. So black chooses to play pawn to h6. There's a lot of theory with knight takes g4. There's also a lot of theory with h6, but I think he was scared to take on g4, thinking that I know a lot of theory and maybe he's not so comfortable facing that. So I go rook to g1. So according to the engine, we're still in book, which we still are. This has all been seen before. I've played this before, but h6 is a little bit less common than most moves. Most of the time they take on g4, but h6 is a perfectly reasonable move. And now black chooses to play d takes c4. Which I'm not really sure I understand all that much. I play bishop takes c4, and he chooses to play b5. So this is an interesting moment in the game. I really could go bishop d3, bishop e2, even g5 is a move that can be considered. But in the game, I chose to play bishop to b3. And the engine doesn't really like this move all that much. But the reason I did this is because I really want to keep this bishop on this diagonal. So when I play something like g5 and maybe knight takes g5, there's going to be a lot of pressure put on f7 and e6. So I kind of like this bishop along this diagonal, but the engine really doesn't like it all that much. Bishop to b7 was played, a good move, and I played g5, which is really the critical move here. And it's really a tightrope for black to equalize here. The engine gives a very, very dicey, or not equalize, even be better. But h takes g5 is suggested, knight takes g5, and then it really just wants black to get greedy here. But I think black was a little bit scared to do this because after something like bishop takes h2, I was fully prepared to sack the knight. I was fully prepared to play knight takes e6 here and just go guns a-blazing. After f takes e6, rook takes g7, I was prepared to play something hyper aggressive like this with my queen coming in. This bishop is a great piece and my rook is active. It's a very dicey position, and it's definitely it's good for black, but it's not so clear. So I think he was a little bit scared to go down that line because bishop takes h2 looks like a very, very greedy move. But in the game, after g5, it really h takes g5 is the move that should be considered, and at the very least you should maybe consider knight d5 if you're not going to play h takes g5. But he essentially makes the losing move here on move 11. He goes knight to h7. So this is a very, it caught me off guard because it looks really strange. And the immediate thought is I want to play g6 because one, that hits this knight on h7, and it also undermines this pawn on f7, or it hits this pawn on f7, which would undermine this pawn on e6. And now this bishop on b3 is looking like a very good piece. So after knight to h7, I play pawn to g6, and black's position kind of falls apart because you have to move the knight, and really the best move is probably to play knight h to f8 here. But everything kind of falls apart here. It's something like g takes h7, or g takes f7, and really the position just kind of goes downhill very, very quickly. Black's king is going to be just shattered here, and I think white is going to have a huge advantage. It's not immediately winning, but black's king is far too exposed. So after g6 in the game, black chooses to play knight g5, and then I choose to play g takes f7, which is a good move. King takes f7, and then I play knight takes g5, h takes g5, and I find a little crafty move here, queen to f5 check. Notice how this pawn is pinned, so this pawn cannot recapture my queen, so this was kind of my plan all along. The engine suggests king to e8 as the best move, but then after bishop takes e6, it's looking really, really, really dangerous, and I'm not really sure how black is surviving there. But it's still giving a +2 advantage in that case. In the game, black plays queen to f6, which I thought was the only move, really, but unfortunately it just loses a piece after bishop takes e6 check, king e7, and bishop takes d7. And then at this point, I'm just up a piece. I have to maintain my piece. If this queen ever takes my queen, I take back with the bishop, and I'm up a piece. So really, I'm just up a piece and a pawn right now. So I'm really just crushing, and I'm gonna win this pawn on g5 too at some point. Maybe I'll go e4, e5. I really just have all the trumps in this position, and it's really hard for black to do anything here. So rook takes h2 was tried. I go pawn to e4, just looking to play e5, and then maybe also play bishop takes g5. Really just a multi-purpose move. Also note, if queen takes d4 is played, bishop takes g5 is going to be devastating if you go anywhere but queen f6. I think queen f6 is, the queen f6 is the only move, so you have to give up the queen anyway. So queen takes d4 is not possible. In the game, it was queen takes f5, but then I'm just up a clean piece, take this pawn on g5, and that's pretty much curtains. The game goes on a little bit longer, but the game is over in short order. After rook g7, king e6, rook to d6 check is going to be leading to checkmate. After king takes e5, there's rook to e7 checkmate. I don't even have to take this bishop on b7, but I thought this was a pretty cool game. It's very instructive how sometimes aggressive play can cause your opponents to really falter. So I played this really aggressive setup, and black really seemed to be a little bit scared. He was very hesitant to take the pawn on h2, and also hesitant to take the pawn on g4 earlier, and then all of a sudden he just retreated too much, and then after knight h7 he's essentially got a lost position. So I thought this was a pretty cool game. how after basically G6 and it's like almost just completely winning for white. But good to get a quick win, and I'm really going to be gunning for a 2200 rating sometime in the near future, and this was a good start. I think I've won 5 straight rapid games, and I'm at 2117, so I'm going to be gunning for my peak, which is 2133, and I think I'll get that in the next couple days for sure.